desserts set off a good Southern dinner like a sweet potato pie. And this one doesn't disappoint, honey. Here's a recipe if you want to pause and print screen. Before I forget, like, subscribe, and ring that bell. That way you can see all the videos in the series. And thank you. The secret to my sweet potato pie is first starting with North Carolina red flesh sweet potatoes. And I don't boil these beauties, I bake them. A baked sweet potato is going to have less moisture and a better flavor and texture in your pie. And while they're still warm, I'm going to start peeling these beautiful red fleshed potatoes. And as you can see, they have a high sugar content, so there's some caramelization even on the skin. This is going to make delicious pie. Now, while it's still warm, I add my butter. This is unsalted butter because we add our salt later. And I also add my brown sugar. By adding these now, they're going to melt into my potatoes, and I'll have less lumping in my custard. I also find that when you boil sweet potatoes, you have more strings in the potatoes than if you allow it to break down in the oven as they bake. These are still quite hot, so if you cannot tolerate the heat, you can do this entire process with some surgical gloves, and some people say that's more tolerable. But I'm just used to peeling these the old-fashioned way with my fingers, which are part asbestos now because I've been baking and cooking for so many years, and I've burned myself so many times that I can't even feel heat. And last one is done. We are ready to move on. This starts with freshly grated nutmeg. I just used my zester and it works beautifully. I cannot tell you the wonderful flavor and fragrance of freshly grated nutmeg, but it is so much better than the store-bought pre-grated type. It's worth a little bit of extra effort to make it yourself. And it's lighter in color because when it's fresh, it has more oil content. The next thing that I use to season up my delicious potatoes is Siamese cinnamon. And I'm generous with the cinnamon. Siamese cinnamon is from my farmer's market, and it has a more intense flavor to me than regular cinnamon. Next is my vanilla bean paste, and I use it for the same reason. It has an intense vanilla flavor and not a lot of water content. Last, I add my egg because we're making a custard out of these potatoes. And I don't want my potatoes to be too salty, so I add pink Himalayan sea salt in at the end. If I use salted butter, I find it overpowers my potatoes. And now with my paddle attachment, I'm just going to break these potatoes completely down. They're still a little bit warm, and what I want is all of these flavors to blend. As they start to break down, you can see that cinnamon is darkening the color of our potatoes. This is great because it's just blending in, and that little bit of heat is going to break those oils down and intensify the flavor of this sweet potato pie. Next thing I do is I let it whip for a good 10 minutes. I really want this to be a smooth custard. Next, I add the next part of my custard, which is my milk. I use sweetened condensed milk because it already has some sugar, which is going to make these potato pies delicious, and it's a little caramelized. Try it instead of milk or even heavy cream. And as we watch these potatoes completely break down, I have to tell you about sweet potatoes and why I love them. They are the number one most nutritious vegetable, more than spinach or broccoli. They're loaded with vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, potassium, and fiber, and beta carotene, which gives it its beautiful color. Now, I love to make sure I have every drop of this condensed milk in my dish, so I'm going to scrape it out of my can. And the number one problem I find people make in sweet potato pies is they do not blend them long enough. Give it 10 minutes, don't turn away, and as it lightens in color, you can tell these potatoes are perfect. I'm making these beautiful little pies for a party, so I'm doing individual tartlets. They're so much more pretty than if you had to cut a large pie. And I don't like people touching my food. So whenever I have the opportunity to make desserts, I usually will do individual sizes. In another video, I show you how to make a beautiful pie crust. You can always use store-bought pie crust. However, to make it yourself is easy and much more delicious. And I'm piping these using a plain 809 large round piping tip. I find it gives a beautiful design to my finished pies, and I don't have to smooth these down like if I were using an ice cream scoop. So now I'm going to finish filling my little pies. And once that's done, I use my leftover pie crust to add one heart in the center of each of these pies. Just a little extra love in the pot, and it makes them really pretty. I bake these for 20 minutes at 325 degrees, and the only thing left to do is give these delicious and lovely little pies a taste. I hope you try this recipe. It's always a winner. And thank you for watching.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this one. Tell me how it turned out for you in the comments. Click like, subscribe and ring that bell for all the videos in this playlist, or just view these next two. And thank you again for watching. Alright, that's it.